Thanks for your company. We are home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. We are live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144 around the world at myjoyonline.com and on your digital television because we are free to air. The details now. A corruption risk assessment on procurements made to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic in Ghana has identified irregularities in contracts awarded. The assessment conducted by the Community Development Alliance with support from the Commonwealth Alliance found that contracts awarded to 4 Ghanaian garment manufacturing companies that had been given loans of $10 million through the Ghana Exim Bank to produce PPEs, face masks, medical scrubs, hospital gowns and headgears was without tender. The companies were also not registered with the Public Procurement Authority at the time the contract was awarded. Now let me give you more details in that particular document published earlier this week. All right, so let me just bring you that executive summary. It says this assessment addresses corruption risk associated with public procurement during the COVID-19 pandemic in Ghana. The assessment was carried out in March to April 2021. Now, this is important. It was based on a review of background documentation, including the National Legal Regulatory Framework for Public Procurement with focus on integrity-related issues, official records in both electronic and hard copy formats, checks with state agencies, and interviews, governance and anti-corruption experts, international regulatory framework, in particular World Bank directives on public procurement, have been taken into account for best practice evaluation. So when you scroll up, it says the assessment included an evaluation of the institutional framework in the field, including its operational capacities, efficiency of integrity mechanisms, control and sanctions. Individual interviews have been held with stakeholders of the national procurement, that's regulators, contracting authorities, control bodies, and civil society organizations, to identify problems and risk sectors. So we've been joined by the executive director of the Community Development Alliance, Sally Fukanton, for more on this. Pardon me, earlier I said this was done in consultation or with support from the Commonwealth Foundation, rather. Thank you so much for your time here this morning, sir. First, let's start off basics first. Why the need for this assessment? Apology for the loss in sound there. It appears we have a challenge in Mr. Canton's sound. We'll try and work on it. But while we do so, let me just try and bring you some more findings on that risk assessment. We'll quickly put up the document on the screen and share the details with you. So the following conclusions have been made. When you come down, you see that there's a headline up rather, that says the following conclusions have been made. Okay, so the government of Ghana has accessed and utilized 12,440,710,000 cedis from sources such as the World Bank, IMF, Ghana Stabilization Fund, Contingency Fund of the Stabilization Fund, Ghana Heritage Fund, Ghana Exim Bank, and the COVID-19 Trust Fund set up by government. And we know that a lot of your contributions as individuals and private sector went into that. Now it says this assessment clusters Ghana's COVID-19 corruption risks around 2 main issues. The first is irregular procurement practices that violates Ghana procurement laws, and corruption risks that indicates that there's been substantial breaches of anti-corruption laws, regulations, codes, and international conventions and best practices. Thankfully, we've got Mr. Canton back to share more on this assessment conducted by his organization with us. I was asking you for the basics first. What warranted this risk assessment?
Well, thank you, my dear sister. I hope that you can hear me loud and clear now.
Much better, sir.
Okay. So if you do recall, sometime in March, we recorded our first COVID-19 case in 2020. Following that, our government marshaled a lot of resources and efforts to try and contain the pandemic and ensure that the Ghanaian citizens are protected against this dreaded global pandemic. Having traversed the rollout of our national response to containment of COVID-19, we have done barely a year, and thankfully we are inching close to moving from a response and relief program to a recovery initiative. Within that context, we that we needed to do some stock taking of how well we have managed this crisis situation, and to see whether or not there are some lessons that we can learn from this. And to do that, the best way is to generate a certain body of evidence. So to conduct a corruption risk assessment came in immediately as one very useful action that could set the stage for this very hard and difficult conversations around COVID-19 financial accountability issue. So if you ask me why this, I say that we are doing so exactly because we are now moving from a response and relief program to a recovery phase. So we need to learn from the response and relief actions to inform our recovery actions so that our country can be better off.
All right, so let's quickly delve into the findings. One of them, which was quite topical, especially during the vetting of now Health Minister, had to do with Frontiers Healthcare Solutions Services. There's been a lot of conversation on that already. Let's come to the second point in your executive summary with your findings on the $1 million contract awarded to develop the COVID-19 tracker app to two foreign companies, namely iQuint Technologies and Ascent Digital Solutions. You say that was registered in Jersey, a tax haven, and you say it was irregular. The two companies were not legal persons in Ghana at the time of the contract awarded, and they were not registered with the PPA and did not go through tender. I'm asking you this question because we have a response on this, especially from the Communications Minister, but I'll just like you to tell us how you arrived at this conclusion on this particular contract.
Well, I'm sure I'm very grateful you brought that up. We've basically laid out clearly how we went about this work, reviewing documentation, key interviews of key persons we believe to have relevant information that's useful for the kind of work like this, and all of that. So from the sources and the analysis of information available to us, we came to the conclusion that this particular contract, as captured in this report, for these two companies really had irregular issues related to how the services were procured. We have had various inputs from different government sources also as to whether or not these were public funds or whether or not government has made that specific expenditure related to this. But from the sources we pick up, clearly we got the sense that this contract was quite irregular, to the extent that the companies were not legal entities in Ghana and they were not registered with the PPA and could not have, on the basis of our own regulations, been beneficiaries of these contracts. So we are basically putting that out there and saying that, look, as far as we are concerned, these contracts, as we saw them and the information available to us we are convinced, we think that there's something about this contract that potentially is a red flag that requires more clarity. So if government is coming forward with explanations as to what really the facts are about this contract, for us it's all the good for it.
All right, you quote a sum, $1 million. What is the evidence to prove that that sum was actually given in the award of this contract? How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I've just told you that every fact contained in this report is generated from documentation we have reviewed and have access to, We have talking about interviews of key informants that provided information we reasonably believe to be true, on the basis of which we have analyzed and captured same in this report.
Okay.
So where exists contrary information from government that brings clarity to it, for us, we think it is good. So we have put it out. If there is sufficient information that contradicts what we have put out, then that information will be helping inform the Ghanaian people as to the facts relating to this contract.
All right, I'll come back to you, Mr. Canton, because the Minister for Communications, Eslawusu Ekufo, has been responding to this corruption risk assessment released by your organization.
What I've seen is your tweet that we spent some $1 million on the COVID tracker app, which is absolutely false. No contract has been awarded for that amount. I've also seen such figure put out as the amount spent for the launch of the app. That's also a segment of somebody's imagination. So I'm surprised that this organization, which claims it's putting together a corruption risk assessment COVID-19 response, would elevate. I'm even trying to choose my words carefully here. Relation by rumors and absolute falsehoods as facts, and then package them in a nicely bound report and use that to impugn the integrity of this government and malign it. I can only speak for what, and I'll urge every other agency which has been mentioned in this report to also take a close look at what they claim to be the facts. Then we can have a conversation. No one contacted us when they were compiling this report. I don't know how they came up with these figures, whether they just plucked them from the air and plunked them in their report. But I'm putting them to strict proof of what they allege to be the cost of the COVID tracker app and the cost of its launch. They should produce the contracts and the invoices which led to that amount that they put in there. If they really are researchers, let's just talk.
Was the COVID-19 tracker app developed by Messrs. iQuence Technologies and Ascend Digital Solutions? Is that the case?
I have said publicly that Ascend Digital Solutions, which is one of the service providers working with the National Information Technology Agency, decided to use this as their corporate social responsibility and support of government, as other corporate institutions were also doing at the height of the pandemic. Some donated money, some donated items, some donated their services. And this company donated its services as its contribution to government COVID response. They have not been paid a pesewa from any public fund for what they did, because that is what they opted to do in support of government.
Right.
So I want to see the supposed contract that they claim the government of Ghana has signed with these entities for the provision of these services. I am really anxious to cite the contract that they report in this assessment that they've done.
What of iQuence Technologies?
Communications or central government have signed any such contract with anybody.
What of iQuence Technologies? He said that Ascend Digital Solutions did this as their corporate social responsibility. What about iQuence Technologies, the one owned by...
I do not know iQuence Technologies. My dealings on this matter were with Ascend Digital Solutions. I don't know how they procure the system. So, who the service providers they work with are their own responsibility. I don't drill down to those details. I have not signed any contract with iQuence Technology. And if the supposed researchers have any such contract, let them produce it. That's the argument I'm making.
How much
government of Ghana, as part of the development of the COVID-19 tracker app, and you can quote me anywhere, did not pay a pesewa to anybody for the development of this app or for the launch of this app. I've said so umpteen times, and I stand my on. If anybody has any facts to the contrary, let them produce it.
Do you plan on taking on this group since you are so convinced that this is a publication that amounts to falsehood?
And whoever does this research should also be interested in time. If they just package a bunch of rumors, lies, and speculation floating on social media and elevated it to the status of fact, we should all be very concerned. If you call yourself a researcher, at least do the bare minimum to get facts to back the assertions that you make. And don't just close social media rumors and facts and speculation and figments of people's imagination into elevate that to the status of fact and package it as the truth about government COVID response. I think it is absolutely unethical for any so-called researcher to do that. And if I had my way, that organization would be blacklisted from doing any serious work for any international organization. They do a lot of discredit to the research community. And if I am challenging this one fact, I think it puts the entire package of lies that they took out there, the entire work, it breaks its credibility into serious questions. And I urge every institution that has been named in this research to take a copy of that report, look at it, and verify whether or not what is put out there is a figment of their information or it's what really happened.
I just...
So that was Communications Minister speaking to my colleague Daniel Dazi on Prime Morning on Joy Prime. So, Mr. Cantor, let me come back to you. She's very firm in her stance, and that's why I was asking what document you refer to, especially when you quote that sum of $1 million. Let me just ask, in your work, you mentioned your methodology included referring to existing document and conducting interviews. Was the Communications Ministry at any point reached out to for a response on this matter?
Well, my dear sister, thanks so much and for the good work you're doing, particularly amplifying our voice and getting some very important responses from government ministries, departments, and agencies. And I'm particularly very happy for the response from my elder sister, Esla, the Minister for Communications. And I'm so excited about the response. And exactly that is the reason why we set up this, to do this. And I think the first objective is being met. First of all, the minister categorically basically didn't deny that the companies so mentioned are not known to them. He did acknowledge that some of these companies did work for them.
She mentioned that she didn't know she mentioned that she didn't know iQuint Technologies. That she did say.
Yes, but she mentioned one of them and said what they did for them was basically a corporate social responsibility.
Exactly.
Exactly, and said that every company, every individual was bringing their services and contributions. And this that we have done is actually our contribution to the COVID fight.
Yes, I understand, Mr. Canton. I mean, let's just, we don't have a lot of time, but I'm just asking specifically. You say that these companies that developed the apps were awarded a $1 million contract. And I'm asking you, she claims that it's not true and that a pesewa wasn't paid to them. And I'm asking that in your entire work, you know, getting these findings, it's only fair that you reach out to the agencies responsible for a response. And she claims that you didn't reach out to them. And I'm asking you that did you at any point reach out to the Communications Ministry to say, look, this is what we found in our work. Do you have a response? That's only fair in writing reports and doing assessments, isn't it?
You are exactly right. The COVID-19 value chain basically had to do with several ministries and agencies. We have a whole team of crack team that looked into this and interviewing different groups of people, reaching out to different agencies, analyzing different documentation. I can say that it is possible and highly likely that her agency or officials within her agency may have been contacted and information obtained from them, for which reason this has been captured in this report. She says that is not the case, but for me, that is the beauty of the discussion. What in essence and what we should look forward to is that she's a public agency, she's a minister, a senior public officer. Ours is to raise the red flags. It now behoves on our government to take action either by commissioning a special audit or something that will unravel all of these. She has said that we should bring out contract documents, we should bring out invoices. You know, those documents she referred to are exclusively within her domain to preserve. And it will take some additional effort by the state to uncover that. That is not our job. And that is not what we are set out to do. We are not a BNI or IOCO or anti-corruption agency that is seeking to investigate a state agency and file cases in court and get them prosecuted. Ours is a citizens-led public advocacy organization.
All right.
And our focus is to raise the red flags. Okay. And that's what we have done.
Okay, I'll come back to wrap up this conversation with you, but let's listen to the communications minister again. So apart from focusing on the particular issue she has with your findings that's within her purview, she rubbishes the entire document.
I'm putting this group of researchers to strict proof and insist that they must justify the work that they have done, or we will use it as toilet paper, for that's the work that it has. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
How does that make you feel, Mr. Canton?
Very elated. Very, very elated. I'm so happy because, look, had it not been for this work, she would not speak to that issue and bring some bit of clarity to it. Now, we're looking at the bigger picture. We've not yet mentioned one issue, that's just one drop of it. So for me, the response that our minister has given, that is basically how we make government work for us. Our government work better for us if we are able to hold them to account for public services. And it's essentially our job as a civil society. We're not doing an investigation to prosecute people. We are raising red flags and concerns that are germane to the Ghanaian people. And for me, to get her response is the first step of addressing the issues that we are worried about.
But she says that these information that you put out are based on rumors.
Well, I would accept whatever she says. You know that as public policy advocates, sometimes we step on toes when you raise these hard issues that many are not comfortable talking about. Definitely you anger people and they will speak the way they want to feel. It's a free world. And that is the democracy we are building. So while civil society has the right to critique government, government equally has the right to critique civil society. And so for me, I'm very much elated about her responses. I am very happy, and I believe that is the kind of conversation that will produce the change that we want.
I appreciate...
For us, and basically that's it.
I appreciate your time this morning. Salifu Canton is Executive Director of the Community Development Alliance, and he's been talking to us about their report on strengthening COVID-19 accountability mechanisms. Away from that, many people, including health officials, have praised the 33-year-old woman who is a midwife for her selfless commitment to saving lives of pregnant women and their babies in hard-to-reach communities in the Ashanti region. Without access to an ambulance, Delali Gavo of the local Motokrodua Chips compound has improvised the use of wooden doors to transport expectant mothers to health facilities for delivery. Ohiming Teria of our health desk traveled to meet Delali Gavo. Here's his report.
Motokrodua is a small farming community in the Sache East District of Ashanti region. It is one of the hard-to-reach areas in the district, with thousands of hamlets scattered in the thickest of the forest. Many of the settler farmers are plagued with many waterborne related diseases and other health conditions. Justice Ofori Amwa is the district director of health.
When you get to Motokrodua, it's a forest, and therefore you have a lot of these community members who live in the forest, in the hamlets. So you get to community A, you get about 2 or 3 people, you move to the next. So getting them is not so simple.
Many residents living below poverty levels cannot afford healthcare services and prefer home remedies. Pregnant women often suffer near-death complications as they fail to attend antenatal clinics. Some are delivered on their farms and others are transported to the Motokrodia Chief's compound for attention by the only midwife here, the Lali Gavo and her team.
Some of the cases we always attend to are snake bites, scorpion stinge, malaria, diarrhea. We have communities such as Titikaso, New Apaso, and Peja, Adukrum, that they are say. And the distance is far from where they are to the facility. So we do home visiting, get to the community, we attend to some of them. The serious one, we bring them to the facility to attend to them.
Lacking access to motorable roads, ambulance or other means of transportation for critical referral cases, Ms. Gavo has improvised and resorted to the use of wooden doors to transport her clients. 2 wooden slabs are joined with nails at the 2 ends of the door to support head pass. Patients lie in a supine position on the door and are carried on the head with the help of 3 men. This ingenuity has helped save many expectant mothers and their unborn babies.
This woman was so weak and was lying there. She mentioned some complaints to me that she's feeling lower abdominal pain and dizziness. That's why she's not able to walk. After the assessment, I realized that she's having a BP, high BP. Then when I listened to the fetal heart rate, it was very low. And I realized that water that the fetus was lying in was very green. So it gave me a signal that we can easily lose this baby.
20-year-old Zelia Yaya is among expectant mothers saved by this improvised wooden door ambulance. She had declined seeing an untrained traditional birth attendant in a nearby hamlet until the Lali arrived. Thanks to the ingenuity of the Lali, she safely delivered a bouncing baby girl.
I want to make cook my wedding. I'm Madame Della. I'm girlfriend one no buy, but not can a penalty. I know yes any impegis, any impedria 3. No more pedal, no more swam. So I'm also here could be as no more brown no more, no more. Madame Della, Edafuku, Tudo, Anna Miami Papa, Anna Kenneth. As
a norm, the Lali has been visiting Zelia and her baby for counseling on postnatal health. For Zelia, the wooden door has become part of her life-saving story. She gazes at it almost every day, reminiscing. Such a East District Health Director, Justice Ofori Amua and his team, who visited the area, want the wooden ambulance preserved.
Seeing the door and what a door is made of and what it's meant for, and eventually it has been used as something improvising to save a life of a woman who was in labor and saving their unborn fetus. I see this door to be symbolic and be used as a tourist site and attraction.
This is not the only good act of Delali. She single-handedly led the production of hospital beds to complement the ones provided by the district assembly, and also mobilized the community to fund the purchase of solar panels for the facility. She has since become the toast of many, especially among her peers. Delali was voted the best midwife for Sechere East District in 2019 and was recently selected by the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives to compete for best nurse at the regional level. Mrs. Juliana Edumensa is the district public health nurse.
We know Dela to be a person who is very hardworking, so we were not surprised of her initiative as well. She has made the district proud, and we, the district, we acknowledge that. We did that when we made her the best nurse. That was in 2019. So we are also proud of her for her raising the bar.
The situation at Motokrovia is a reflection of the challenges faced by health workers in the Sechere East District in their quest to bring healthcare to the people. The district health director has acknowledged the support of the Sechere East District Assembly. Justice Oforia Moa, however, wants public support.
You're watching News Desk, and news just coming in is that actress Rosamund Brown, popularly called Ekria Pimpolo, has been granted bail by an Accra High Court pending appeal to that 90-day sentence which was handed her. My colleague Kwekwa Sante was in court this morning and joins us with more. Hello, Kwekwa Sante. Tell us what transpired in court this morning. Too bad we lost Kwekwa Sante there. Well, if you may recall, sometime last week, actress Rosamund Brown, popularly called Ekria Pimpolo, was handed a 90-day jail term by the High Court for some issues that she had with photographs she published which were considered obscene and contained some nudity. But we are learning this morning that after her lawyers appealed that sentence and also filed for bail pending that appeal, well, she's been granted that by the Accra High Court. And we are told that the lawyers did this because the argument was that the 90-day jail term may have elapsed by the time that appeal would have ended. And so that's why they decided to do that. Kwekwa Sante was in court for us, and he joins us with details. Hello, Kwekwa, what transpired in court this morning?
Right, Benes. So in court today, lawyers for Ekria Pimpolo, led by Mr. Votia Andrews, argued before the court that the bail sentence of the jail of 90 days was passed, but that was to go into the substantive case. So they were arguing before the court today that the court should grant their client bail because the 9-month sentence, the 90-day sentence that had been slapped on the actress would have way long elapsed by the time the appeal process would have elapsed. And so they made that argument strenuously and forcefully to the judge who heard them and actually asked the prosecution and the state, led by state attorney, Mr. Salasi, whether or not they had any opposition to the bail application that had just been rendered court. The state said they had no objection and that the court would have to make that decision themselves, and they left that to the judge. And so the judge decided that she was going to grant Ekria Pimpolo 80,000 cedis bail before the appeal is heard, and also that the actress would have to provide 2 guarantors. Those 2 would have to be verified by the court, and as well, anytime the actress wants to travel out of the country, she would have to seek the permission of the court before she can do so. And so it was a crisp day in court today. The argument in favor of the bill were made. The state did not oppose it, and the judge actually granted the bail application.
And was Ekria Pimpolo in court today?
It was expected that she would be brought, but she was not. We asked the lawyer, Mr. Votia, why the actress was not in court. He did not seem to have an idea, but according to the lawyer, the most important thing now is that his client is going to get her freedom back. And so they are going to process the bail conditions as soon as possible. They are going to get an 8,000 cedis bail, as well as the 2 sureties and all other processes that the court had outlined to grant the client bail and ensure that either by today or close of day tomorrow, the actress can get back home with her child.
And finally, before you go, Kweku, do we know when the appeal proper will be heard?
Right. So a new date for this appeal proper that will take into consideration the substance of the appeal, which says that the 90-day sentence slapped on Akiapin Polo is harsh, has not been set yet. But the lawyer has been giving us a certain indication that the court registrar will soon get into contact with him, and they will find a state that will be more applicable to both the state and the Akiapin Polo and her lawyers. And so they are looking forward to hearing that application as soon as possible, so that they can be able to take away any doubt that the jail sentence, that is the 90-day slapped on her, was harsh and was something that the court ought to have considered.
Kweku Asante, we'll leave it here. That's my colleague joining us from court. And the news in this morning is that actress Rosamond Brown, popularly called Akiapin Polo, has been granted bail pending appeal of that 90-day sentence handed by an Accra Circuit Court presided over by Christiana Khan. You're watching News Desk with me, Bernice Abubedulanta. We've got more right after this to stay. I'm grateful that you stay on News Desk with me, Bernice Abubedulanta. I'm taking you straight to Parliament now, because the Transport Committee is meeting with various driver unions over the unnecessary deaths on our roads. Between January and April this year, we've lost over 800 lives. I'm sure you will recall that we've been on this campaign to end the carnage. And my colleague, Seth Kwame Boateng, produced an excellent documentary on the issue. Well, they've screened that and they're having a discussion. Let me take it to Parliament now.
So that, because if almost 2,000, we recorded 2,583 deaths involving 15,000 plus road crashes. Out of the 15,000, we recorded 2,583 deaths. 70% of this death can be attributed to these 3 causes. That, how do you deal with it? In terms of I have always made my position that we can deal with this issue of accident in 3 broad areas. One is how the enforcement agencies should make sure they enforce the law to the letter, irrespective of whoever is being caught by the law. Because if you have made laws, you have the road traffic regulation laws here act in this country, and there are regulations that we've passed, LI 2180. But people don't respect those laws that we've made for ourselves. So enforcement is very key. 2 is investment in technology, because now police, I'm even sure, when I travel, even if you go to South Africa, in some of the African countries here, you don't see police people standing in some obscure areas. Their motive is not to just prevent people who maybe may carelessly be misbehaving on the road, but just apprehend them and maybe. So I will just pause here and we'll watch. They will come back. Come back.
See, everything is live, so be very careful.
What do you see in your shots, members of Parliament's Transport Committee and some reps from driver unions in the country, they are viewing Seth Kwame Boateng's documentary Crushed. And after that, they would have a discussion on the carnage on our roads. Between January and April this year, we've lost over 800 lives to road crashes, and that is more than the number we've lost to COVID-19 in a year. And it raises a lot of questions about safety on our roads and whether we have given it the right priority it deserves. Before this documentary was shown on television on the 12th of April, we had the Transport Minister and other stakeholders viewing it, making comments. We know that the police is putting in some technology to help deal with the problem. And so this is expected to aid in that campaign to end the carnage on our roads. This meeting between the Transport Ministry, the Transport Committee of Parliament, I beg your pardon, and driver unions. We'll come back to bring you more on this later when the discussions begin, but let me bring you this other chilling story. Police have arrested two suspects, Labik Matthew and Bisom Dodam, for burning a 64-year-old woman alive at Nangpanduri in the Bumpurugu district of the Northeast region. The Northeast Region Police Crime Officer Superintendent Ruben Duga, who confirmed the arrest, said the suspects were arrested at Dadieso in the Western North region after they had attacked the woman and her husband with petrol in January this year. The crime officer said the two have provisionally been charged with attempted murder and causing injury and are expected to be taken to court on Thursday. He spoke to regional correspondent Ilyasu Tanko.
26th of January 2021 at Napanduri, one of the villages in the Bumpurugu districts in the Northeast region. This young man, he has an uncle who works with the GRA, Ghana Revenue Authority. So the uncle came home and he called him just to advise him to be of good behavior and conduct himself well. He was then working with two others. Apparently he wasn't happy with these kind of pieces of advice the uncle was giving him. So this got him infuriated. He went home and came back with petrol in this ablution can to burn the house of the uncle. So at that time he arrived, the uncle's mom, I mean the 64-year-old woman, one Lila Akuya, she was standing at the gate of the door. So she kind of tried to prevent him from carrying out this bad intention of his. Then this young man just poured the petrol on the body of this old lady and lit her. This young man, after this act, he went into a hideout. He actually ran into neighboring Togo, but we had hint of his movement, so we put a trail on him. We were monitoring him. When he got to know that police were closing up on him, he relocated. So we continued our trail on him and we located him at Western North region, precisely in Dadieso. And then in collaboration with the Dadieso police, and that is the NG Divisional Command, we were able to apprehend him. We think that this young man's conduct amounted to an attempt to murder. So we are giving him an attempted murder and at the same time causing harm. The others who were kind of acting alongside with him will be held for aiding and abetting him. And so those are the charges we are preparing for now. But we will be forwarding the docket to the law office for advice.